perfect sphere, and a centrifugal force pushes outward. But since this gravity-opposing force acts perpendicular to the axis of Earth, and Earth's axis is tilted, centrifugal force at the equator is not exactly opposed to gravity. This imbalance adds up at the equator, where gravity pushes extra masses of water and Earth into a bulge, or spare tire, around our planet. See you next time on Bet You Didn't Know, compliments of Sigismund Consultants, Inc.
Drink Pepsi Black for max taste, no sugar. Pepsi Black time, 18 hours.
The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
The news comes to you compliments of KFC. It's finger licking good. With the news, I am Ruth Wilson. Good evening. First, the highlights. Minister of Governance to move motion at the next sitting of the National Assembly next Wednesday to approve the appointments of 4 persons to serve on the Police Service Commission. Minister of Local Government Nigel Dharamlal indirectly on his personal Facebook page referenced as PNC activists 2 female Court of Appeal judges. Guy Suko says strike actions in 2021 have depleted the sector's revenue totaling more than $1 billion. And the Health Ministry says that the Omicron COVID variant is not yet present in Guyana. In the region, an unnamed mediator is to mediate between the Barbados government and union to ensure agreement to end the strike by nurses. The Trinidad government will not withdraw its vaccination policy for public sector employees. And former Gambian president, that's internationally, former Gambian president found guilty of being complicit with crimes against humanity, a Truth Commission found. Details of these and other stories in a moment.
KFC delivery is now available from the Amazonia location for shore-based Little Diamond residents. Call 632-0533, 632-0533, 6080162, 6080162, or 503-3591, 503-3591. That's KFC's delivery service from the Amazonia location. KFC.
It's finger licking good.
And now for the news in detail. Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance Gil Teixeira will next Wednesday move a motion for the Assembly to approve the appointments of 4 persons to serve on the Police Service Commission, PSC. Mr. Teixeira is also chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Appointments and has submitted its final report for approval with 4 approved names, that of businessman Ernesto Chuafat, attorney-at-law Lloyd Mark Conway, businessman Hakeem Mohammed, and Bishop Patrick Anthony Findlay. Following the adoption of the motion next Wednesday, President Irfaan Ali will be informed that the 4 were nominated for appointment to the commission. President Irfaan Ali and opposition leader Joseph Harman will have to then agree on who will become the chairman of the PSC. President Ali suspended the previous commission through a fallout over promotion of senior police officers for 2020, which the government was not in agreement with following the exclusion of some senior officers who were not promoted with pending disciplinary matters. The then PSC had taken the Commissioner of Police Nigel Hoppy to court for failing to promote officers on the advice of the approved list forwarded to him by the PSC. The life of the PSC came to an end in August of this year. Minister of Local Government Nigel Dharamlal indirectly on his personal Facebook page referred to 2 Court of Appeal judges as PNC activists. The minister was responding to a Facebook post by the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Lennox Schumann, who called for respect of the decisions of the judges and who expressed in his post that the appeal should be heard to settle electoral issues. In his response, Mr. Dharamlal says the Deputy Speaker, Lennox Schumann, speaks from both sides of his mouth. He says Mr. Schumann's rank, opportunism and equivocation are palpable. Mr. Dharamlal went on to say the Deputy Speaker cannot be calling for the rule of law on one hand and then commending two PNC activists on the bench for going against the law. The local government minister was forced to withdraw a post he made calling for the defrocking of two judges after the Bar Association called for the withdrawal of the remarks. Vice President Bar Jagdeo today said on a live Facebook interview that the minister erred.
I believe whilst the minister I should have probably maybe been a little bit more careful about calling for removal of judges, but because that's definitely not within his remit, and there is a constitutional process that you have to go through if you want to do such a thing, and that's above his pay grade. But I can sympathize with him on the frustration side.
Mr. Jagdeo says that Mr. Dharamlal will not be sanctioned, saying that his position reflected the general frustration of persons.
Impulsive doesn't mean unthinking. I'm sure he is very passionate. And he expresses himself. I'm not going to chastise him for expressing a frustration that I felt too. But he went probably a little too far on calling for removal, which is not his remit. Or even I wouldn't call for that, because that could be seen as trying to influence removal of a judge, and we definitely don't want that. But I too shared his frustration, so I'm not going to sit here and run him down for expressing that frustration.
Mr. Dharamlal called for the removal of Justice Gregory Barnes and Justice Yonet Cummings-Edwards for ruling that the appeals court has jurisdiction to hear the appeal for the dismissed election petition 99 in the High Court by Chief Justice Roxanne George on the ground of late service to Mr. David Granger. Gaisuco says strike actions in 2021 have depleted the sector's revenue, totaling more than $1 billion. In a statement on Thursday, the Sugar Corporation said 63 strikes at the sugar belt during October of this year resulted in a loss of $740 million, which is the most favorable month for sugar production. The corporation says further strikes unrelated to industrial action, but for cash grants and flood relief, cost the corporation a further $378 million. Gaisuco says that despite the loss through strike action, Gaisuco has recorded a reduction in annual financial losses in 40 years. Pre-audited production results are reported at 58 metric tons in 2021 compared to 88 metric tons in 2020. Gaisuco says it has met the needs of the local sugar market with additional reserves to serve the local market until February 2022. Gaisuco predicts in its report that international sugar prices are set to increase for 2022 by around 20%. The CEO says Gaisuco is developing a tillage, planting and factory rehabilitation program to meet the future opportunity, especially in the Caribbean market. Gaisuco is producing sugar locally below the current international market price being offered on the world market. Farmers at Victoria Village, East Coast Demerara, to soon see emergency drainage works in the community in the coming days. Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa visited the farming community on Wednesday, where he witnessed firsthand and heard from farmers in the village of poor drainage due to clogged drainage canals. During a meeting Wednesday afternoon with the farmers, the Agriculture Minister told the farmers that most of their drainage woes will soon be behind them in the coming week, as emergency drainage works will commence within the next 3 to 5 days. Farmers aired their dissatisfaction with the lack of proper drainage, which always resulted in their farms being completely flooded when the rain persisted. In addition, the drainage works being carried out, the Agriculture Minister informed farmers that the National Agriculture Research and Extension Institute, NARI, will conduct a needs assessment to determine how many farmers suffered losses, after which the ministry will make available planting materials and fertilizers so that farmers can return to the land as soon as possible. He told residents that farmers who lost livestock were also assured that following a similar assessment, the ministry will work to offer assistance to farmers who suffered losses. He also promised to engage the ministers of public works to visit the area to address issues with the roadways in the village. The Health Ministry says the Omicron COVID variant is not yet present in Guyana. Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony says the ministry will be aware if and when the variant reaches Guyana.
So if the Omicron variant is in Guyana, we'll see a rapid increase in cases because cases tend to, in countries where it's circulating, cases double in 1.5 to 3 days. Every 3 days you have a doubling of the cases. We have not seen that as yet, so from a epidemiological point of view, we have not seen that. So that's an indication that it's not here as yet.
The health minister says Guyana has systems in place to test samples to detect the presence of the virus.
We have mechanisms in place that when we have such suspected cases, that we'll be able to take those samples and send them to a lab that would be able to do the sequencing. So we have those arrangements in place.
Fewer active cases and hospitalization continues to be recorded by the ministry.
So currently we have 732 active cases and we have approximately 30 persons in hospital. So that would mean that approximately 4% of the people who are currently infected with COVID are in the hospital. And of those in hospital, there are 7 who are in the ICU. So the persons who are in the ICU represents about 0.9% of those persons who are currently infected with COVID.
The ministry says 410,076 adults 18 years and older are partially vaccinated and 293,260 are fully vaccinated. There are 30,198 children 12 to 17 years old partially vaccinated and 21,503 fully vaccinated against COVID-19. You're still with us on 103.1 FM. It is 18 hours 13. We now turn to news in the region. The Unity Workers Union, UWU, which represents the striking nurses in Barbados, is set to return to the bargaining table with Minister of Health and Wellness Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic. This time, an intermediary who apparently reached out to both parties will be working to break the deadlock between the government and the union. According to Barbados Today News, UWU General Secretary Senator Caswell Franklin is confident and expressed optimism that once the matters were brought to the fore, a favorable outcome would follow. The union boss is also hoping that once cooler heads prevail, the docked salaries of the striking nurses will be reimbursed. He revealed that the unnamed mediator, who was once active in public life, is leveraging his or her goodwill with the union and the ministry to strike a fair balance. Earlier this week, Bostic announced a draft of reforms negotiated between the Barbados Nurses Association, BNA, and the Health Ministry, which covered appointments, uniform allowances, specialized training, late and sporadic pay, and environmental conditions. Mr. Caswell Franklin, however, expressed little confidence in the BNA's leaders to resolve the pressing matters on his behalf, rejecting the association's plea for Unity's members to return to work. The union boss says the absence of definitive timelines had rendered the discussions futile. The Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Philip Davis, is in quarantine. Bahamas News reports that he decided to go into quarantine after coming into contact with a number of COVID-19 infected relatives. He says that the government has since intensified preparations as the Omicron variant continues to spread globally. Here are details from Jasmine Brown.
The Prime Minister using his family situation to point out just how dire the COVID situation has become seemingly overnight as he asks Bahamians to act responsibly this holiday season. COVID cases have doubled and tripled over the last few days. On Thursday, the Bahamas recorded 140 cases, up from 79 cases recorded the day before. The Davis family has been impacted as well following a family gathering.
Last weekend, we had a family gathering, which included several family members who traveled here from abroad. Even though everyone was vaccinated and everyone tested negative before travel, several of those who were visiting from abroad tested positive on the 5th day after arrival in the country. Since then, my wife and other family members have tested positive. I remain negative. Because they were vaccinated, they are either asymptomatic or are experiencing only mild symptoms. I'm so grateful that that is the case.
As cases climb, Davis said effective immediately, rules related to gatherings will be tightened.
We are changing the rules about the size of gatherings that are permitted. Indoor gatherings should not have more than 20 people. Outdoor gatherings no more than 30.
Travel rules will also change.
Bahamians and visitors must test negative within 3 days of entering the country instead of 5. And beginning on January 7th, a negative PCR test will be required for all.
Davis says the government is continuing to progress with free COVID testing and is getting ready to mobilize multiple field hospitals should hospitalizations spike. He says plans are underway to utilize the nursing school and the national stadium, and the government is in discussions with an international partner to open a field hospital in Grand Bahama. In the meantime, he says Bahamians should prepare for the worst. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Trinidad and Tobago's Attorney General Faraz Al-Rawi says he has told trade unions that the government will not back down from its vaccination policy. Details from TNT News Online.
Mr. Roger very plainly and very frankly informed me that the unions, as he spoke for them, do not trust the government, do not trust the Prime Minister, and do not trust the data.
Attorney General Faraz Al-Rawi says despite many unions being present at a meeting to discuss government's impending policy on vaccinations for public sector workers, Joint Trade Union Movement leader Ansel Roger was the lone voice that had two demands of government.
1, withdraw its policy, and 2, provide empirical evidence that the vaccines will stop people from getting COVID and stop infections.
However, Mr. Al-Rawi said government's position was clear and pointed out that the vaccine does not prevent someone from getting COVID, but reduces the dependency on hospitals.
The government's policy, quite simply, its sole and primary purpose is to save lives. The data before us is that 9 out of 10 people in the ICU unit are unvaccinated.
The Attorney General confirmed that government's policy would not require support from the opposition.
I am confident that it is of course a rights issue. It is a constitutional issue. It does not require a special majority.
He added that the unions did not want to talk about anything other than withdrawing the policy and had no recommendations with regards to a way forward. The AG said he is pleading with the unions to provide suggestions on the issue and is hopeful that the unions will provide a response.
The several trade unions which Mr. Roger spoke for and on behalf of have not given the country, let alone the government, any form of recommendation as to how to treat with the reality of Omicron and COVID Omicron in today's world.
Sonolala, TTT News.
Users of public transportation in Jamaica can now access information about vehicles to ascertain whether they are registered. As we hear in this report from CVM News, passengers can also alert the Jamaica Transportation Authority if they are fake registrations, and police and relatives can be provided information to track down vehicles.
Amid never-ending fears of abduction, which at times turns deadly, an app expected to ensure safer transportation, the TravelPal app. Developed at a cost of $2.3 million, the app will enable passengers to use their mobile device to scan the registration plates of public passenger vehicles, PPV, to verify if they are licensed by the Transport Authority. Also included in the app is a critical component called the button, which will allow passengers to send a signal to the Jamaica Constabulary Force's 119 Emergency Center, as well as their loved ones in the event of an emergency.
So it is important to us that our passengers are aware of the difference between a legal operator and an illegal one. The Transport Authority is pleased to participate in the development and execution of the TravelPal application, which we believe will revolutionize the transportation sector.
While addressing the issue of abductions, the head of the JCF's Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, PSTEB, believes the TravelPal app will remove the stigma attached to some official taxi operators.
This travel app, it is indeed a very good thing for these official taxi operators so that we can get rid of the perceptions, we can zoom in on the realities, and most of all, to ensure that we protect members of the public.
Transport and Mining Minister Robert Montague is urging citizens to download the app from the Apple Store and on Android devices from the Google Play Store. Aladdin Love for CVM Live.
It is 18 hours 21, now for international news from the BBC World Service.
Hello, I'm Eileen McHugh with the BBC News. A report released by a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in the Gambia has found the former president, Yahya Jammeh, complicit in numerous crimes against humanity. The panel heard evidence from hundreds of witnesses about crimes carried out during Mr Jammeh's rule. Adi Darme is a journalist with QTV in the Gambia.
This is the report that everybody had been waiting for. There'd been a lot of speculation as to what was going to be revealed. The Commission's hearings were quite horrific in themselves. A lot of people wondered whether charges would be recommended or brought against certain individuals. And I guess the headline thing is that in terms of the person who has been named the most, it goes without contest, it's ex-President Yahya Jammeh. In the 40-plus recommendations for prosecution, he's named in almost every one of them. Pretty horrific stuff, torture, killings, kidnappings, enforced disappearances, you name them, they're all there.
5 Western nations have urged Libya to set a new date for the presidential elections that were due to have taken place on Friday. Libya's election commission postponed the vote for a month, as Lipika Pelham reports.
In a joint statement, Britain, France, Germany, Italy and the United States have called on the Libyan authorities to respect the aspirations of the Libyan people, promptly set a new date for the poll and finalise the list of presidential candidates. The elections had been planned as part of a United Nations-backed roadmap aimed at rebuilding the country after a decade of violence following the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi. But the Election Commission postponed the vote earlier this week amid disputes over the eligibility of candidates and growing security fears.
A joint force operating in Africa's Lake Chad region says that 6 soldiers and at least 22 jihadists have been killed in fighting in Nigeria. The multinational Joint Task Force, which includes troops from Nigeria, Niger, Cameroon and Chad, said it had carried out a 3-week sweep of the area. Airlines around the world have cancelled more than 2,000 flights on Friday as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to affect Christmas travel. About 450 flights were cancelled in the US because of illness among airline staff. Here's Nomia Iqbal.
Airliners are trying their best to inform passengers of what's happened. Delta and United, the main airliners, said that they did send text messages and they are trying to help passengers who are stranded. But Omicron has really taken hold in this country. So it was 3 weeks ago when it was first detected, and it now accounts for more than 70% of new coronavirus cases as well. And so there was a warning to Americans by Dr. Anthony Fauci, America's top infectious disease expert, that this Omicron variant would spread very quickly.
You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. Saudi Arabia has granted visas to 3 Iranian officials to work at the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation, in a rare sign of a thaw in relations between the regional rivals. Saudi Foreign Ministry officials said the Iranian diplomats would take up their posts at the OIC's headquarters in Jeddah. The two countries broke off diplomatic ties in 2016 after the execution of a Saudi Shia cleric, which led to attacks by protesters on Saudi diplomatic missions in Iran. Two leading American tech firms, Google and Meta, formerly Facebook, have received huge fines by a court in Moscow for repeatedly failing to delete content Russia deems illegal. Google was fined $98 million, Meta $27 million. It's the first time Russia has penalised technology companies based on their annual turnover. The Greek Coast Guard is continuing a search operation after recovering the bodies of 11 migrants from a shipwreck in the Aegean Sea. Rescuers took 90 people to safety from the small island of Andakithra after the vessel went down on Thursday. On Wednesday, another migrant boat sank off the island of Foligandros. Christians have held reduced Christmas Eve celebrations in the West Bank city of Bethlehem, where international tourists have been kept away by renewed anti-COVID measures. The head of the Roman Catholic Church in the region, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, Pier Battista Pizzaballa, led the reduced Christmas celebrations. The mayor of Bethlehem, Anton Salman, told the BBC that it had been important to go ahead despite the difficulties.
It wasn't easy for Bethlehem to take this risk on the behalf of the municipality. But when you speak to the people and know the feelings of the people, you see that the only way is to make Christmas celebration so the people can participate and they will have the blessing and the joy of Christmas.
BBC News.
And that's the news to the moment.
After a hard day's work, a lime at the workplace would be great, and even greater and better with KFC, with a wide choice of finger-licking meals in a wide range of sizes. Could be a birthday celebration or promotion, or a lime for no reason at all. Any lime, anytime, anywhere is better and tastier with a delicious meal from any of KFC's 9 locations, including the Amazonia Mall at Providence, open now from 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. KFC.
It's finger-licking good.
To end the news, here's a recap of the highlights. Minister of Governance to move motion at the next sitting of the National Assembly next Wednesday to approve the appointments of 4 persons to serve on the Police Service Commission. Minister of Local Government Nigel Dharamlal indirectly on his personal Facebook page referenced as PNC activists 2 female Court of Appeal judges. Gaisuko says strike actions in 2021 have depleted the sector's revenue, totaling more than $1 billion. And the Health Ministry says the Omicron COVID variant is not yet present in Guyana. In the region, an unnamed mediator is to mediate between the Barbados government and union to ensure agreement to end the strike by nurses. The Trinidad government will not withdraw its vaccination policy for public sector employees. And internationally, former Gambian president found guilty of being complicit with crimes against humanity, a Truth Commission found. The news came to you compliments of KFC. It's finger-licking good.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.
On this December 24 to January 1. You can get your greetings 6 times each day, streaming with your image on Christmas Day. 5-minute live broadcast.
All this for $20,000. Here's another fabulous update for all our listeners and new clients. Instead of ending your Christmas greetings with us on January 1, you can do so on January 3. That is right, for no cost attached, no strings attached on this one. So you can end your greetings with us on January 3rd.
Or 4 times each day
for $15,000.
Right here on NTRG.
Call us on 614-8205 or 692-9400 for details. Merry Christmas from News Talk Radio Guyana, 103.1 FM.
May the spirit of Christmas infuse your life and that of your family members with hope, positivity, and joy. Happy holidays from News Talk Radio Guyana 103.